You guys can all hear me. Can I get a thumbs up if you can hear me? I can.
Yes, we can hear you, Nicolette.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning. Good morning to everybody. Thank you so much, Zandile, for that esteemed introduction. Every single time somebody reads my bio, it's always such a confusing thing because I'm like, who's that? That doesn't sound like me. But thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. It's great to be with everybody this morning. I think I'm going to be toggling around different internet connections just to ensure that we don't get any interruption on today's session, because I want to make sure that, you know, everything I have prepared gets relayed as best as possible. So as Zandile has already mentioned, my name is Nicolette Mashile. I'd love to meet everybody. So if you do have an opportunity, please go into the chat box and type out your name so that when I speak to, you know, if I'm making examples, at least I'm relaying it to specific people and not just a group of people on Zoom, right? So I'd love it to also be very much interactive. I don't want to do a keynote address, because often we lose people when we do keynote addresses, because on a virtual space, it's very difficult because you don't see everybody's facial expressions. So when you're saying something, people cannot give you the thumbs down on a virtual session. So I would love to see, to get those thumbs down in terms of it being interactive, and we can have the conversation. So as Zandile has already said, my name is Nicolette Mashile. I am also known as the Financial Bunny. Well, I mean, to be quite honest, I'm not known as the Financial Bunny. I gave myself the name the Financial Bunny. And the reason I did that is because I often feel that bunnies are probably some of the softest animals that we've got. And when somebody speaks about softness and cuteness, we often use a bunny as an example, right? So my job ultimately, or what I really set out to do as a young person living in a country like South Africa, on a continent like Africa, and then globally in the world, I seek to what's the right word that I'm looking for? I seek to ultimately solve the issue of financial illiteracy, because I do feel like it's one of the backbones that uphold things like poverty, or create a thriving space for things like poverty, things like exploitation. Of course, financial literacy is not going to solve world hunger tomorrow, but however, if we can get to a point where we get everybody into a space where they understand their finances, which ultimately we know are one of the biggest reasons why certain people advance in life and certain people get kept behind, right? So that's what I do. I am a financial education enthusiast. I know that sometimes, often when I go to interviews or I go and do certain things, people will call me a financial literacy expert or guru, and it's always very uncomfortable for me, because that is not who and what I actually do. I'm going to ask you guys to just give me 2 seconds. I need to just switch off my washing machine. It's very loud, so I apologize for that. All right, so somebody is going to switch off that washing machine for me. It is a Friday for me, so we are working, unfortunately, in my house. All right, so today I want to talk a little bit about your financial management, at the same time also speaking a little bit about cash flow. I see Sivu is online. Hi, Sivu. Dumiling's online. Hi, Dumiling. Zandile, of course. I want to speak a little bit about financial management and understanding why it's important to be able to manage your finances well. You know, often when we talk about financial management, we speak about it from it feels like it's a thing against us as people, because it feels like it's like you're born with 2 limbs as a person, right? And when I say 2 limbs, I'm talking about your arms, right? You're born with 2 arms. Then financial education or financial management almost feels like an additional limb that needs to come in to be able to support you in some of the things that you are already doing, that you are enabled to do if you just knew what it is that you are meant to do, right? And the reason why I say this is that often you have a lot of people that work either in the financial services sector, people who are entrepreneurs, for instance, people who are aspiring entrepreneurs, for another instance, who generally, when somebody has a conversation with them, there's an expectation that, this person, Luphumlo, understands his finances, based on the fact that he works at a specific place or does specific things. No, man, Itumeleng as a financial wellness coach should know what it is when we're talking about budgeting, when we talk about gearing, when we talk about leveraging debt, right? So there's always an expectation, and part and parcel of that expectation is the fact that your finances should be thriving simply because you know. So I'm here today to tell you that's not true. That is not true at all, okay? Because the one thing about finances that always comes into play is what we call our emotions. So I always say it's important to have emotional intelligence when it comes to your finances. And I'll give you an example. So emotional, financial, or emotional, or financial emotional intelligence comes in various aspects in the way we do things, right? So one of those is what we call biases. Many of us have biases, and I'll give you a story. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine was turning, I think he was turning 26, if I'm not mistaken. He was turning 26 years old. So in our WhatsApp group, he sent this flyer that said, "Hi guys, please join me for a lunch to celebrate my 26th birthday. It's going to be on this day at this time." And the address was, I think it was 74th West of 52nd Street in New York City, United States of America. Now, everybody in the group was like, "Yo, I care Richmond, Kalile. What is this? What does Richmond mean when he says his birthday lunch is going to be in New York City, the Big Apple?" So now everybody thought this must be a big joke, right? So people are sending in the group, which New York are you talking about? Oh, by the way, there are certain streets in Cosmo, north of Johannesburg, which have names like New York. So everybody was like, "Are you talking about the New York that we all know? Are you talking about in New York?" Yes, say Cosmo. And he's like, "No, I'm talking about New York in the Big Apple." And everybody's like, "I care, Richmond. We're not going to make it to your lunch because first and foremost, New York is far. This is very dramatic of you, and we don't have the money." And Richmond was like, "No, but I'm giving you guys at least 6 months to plan for this trip to New York." And fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of people were like, "Nah, we're not going to make it, friend. Sorry, we'll just send a gift, whatever. So the one friend of ours that I know can afford to go to New York, I DM her or I privately message her, and I'm like, "Friend, how come you're not going to make it to Richmond's birthday party or birthday lunch?" And she's like, "Friend, New York, it's not going to happen, eh, guys. Like, guys, you don't know our pockets, eh?" And I was like, "No, I don't know your pocket, but I do know that you can plan to be able to put away enough money to be able to afford a flight, a return flight, in fact, to New York City." So she's like, "No, friend, it's so expensive." So I said to her, "How much is it? How much? You seem very sure of how much you think it is. So you tell me how much it is." She's like, "No, friend, I don't know the specifics, but I know it's very expensive." And I said, "That's correct. You don't know the specifics. You are making an assumption based on what you have already confirmed about New York. You have confirmed to yourself that it's another continent. You've confirmed to yourself that it is the Big Apple, so therefore it must be so expensive. You have confirmed to yourself that there are certain things in your life that you will never have access to simply because you've created a barrier between yourself and that place." She was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "This is exactly what confirmation bias speaks about. This is you not practicing financial emotional intelligence. You've already, based on your perception of New York and where New York is, you've already given yourself a barrier that says, I cannot afford to go to New York." In actual fact, at that time, a return flight to New York on SAA, of course, economy class, which is not an end of the world because whether you're in first class, whether you're in business class, whether you're in economy class, you fly to London at the same time. So it doesn't really matter which class you are in. We're still all going to bump into each other at 52nd Street in New York. So it doesn't matter which class you're flying in, right? It was 14,000 Rand. If you take 14,000 Rand and you divide it literally by 6 months, you're going to get just above 2 point something. These are people in my WhatsApp group that I know for a fact can afford to put away 2.5. Perhaps maybe Richmond was not a friend enough for them to be able to put away that 2.5, right? Maybe he was not enough for them to be able to put 2,500. But I think it's important that we don't do that. In fact, I did go to New York in that time, and it wasn't just for his birthday. I actually remember before that, preceding that actual trip to New York, I actually contacted the guys at Wells Fargo. I contacted the guys at the financial gym. I contacted guys from 32 cents. And all of these people are financial institutions that put financial education and financial management at the forefront of what they do. And I decided that if I'm going to go on this trip, it's not just going to be for my friend's birthday. It is going to be because I want to advance the work that I do. So a trip that I would have otherwise just gone for leisure purposes turned into an investment for my business. Now, if I had decided at that point to use my confirmation bias that I may have about New York, it would have been an opportunity missed for me to be able to network and connect with people that potentially can advance my business. And they did advance my business because I came back and I was able to reshift things around and align things. And now my business is far more profitable than it would have been had I not gone on that trip. Now, of course, this may just be an isolated incident, right? Where a person like Nicolette is making an easier decision based on the fact that perhaps maybe because I've gone to New York before, I know what the prices are. I too, as Nicolette, have confirmation biases about certain things in my life. So it's important that while you are practicing financial emotional intelligence, you need to be aware of your own biases. I'll give you another example. I remember working for one of the financial institutions. In actual fact, I was volunteering there at one of the financial institutions. And the lady that was actually what would have been my line manager had I actually been formally employed. By the way, if you know me, you know I am the type of person that will kick doors, guys. I will kick doors down. If doors are not going to go down, I'm going to kick them. I kick this door at this financial institution. So I met this lady. She's in charge of a flagship. She was at the time in charge of a flagship program where they were supporting SMMEs, right? So I went there and I had a conversation. And I said, listen, Ma, I want you guys to fund a financial literacy show on television. And the lady said to me, oh, you know what? Sounds like a great idea. Would love to do it, but our focus is on entrepreneurs. I said, great, good shot. Because let's be fair, entrepreneurs are probably one of the biggest groups of people that need good financial management. So let's do a show that is targeted at entrepreneurs, new SMMEs, small business, and aspirational entrepreneurs, because those are the people that need the financial education, right? Ultimately, our money is it's like we don't have consistency in terms of where you're going to get money, how are you going to seed your business, where you're going to get startup capital. All of those things are very important to an entrepreneur. She then said to me, you know what, Nicolette, very noble of you. I like the way you think. I like the way you want to align what you do with, all of these initiatives. However, I don't have capacity in my office to be able to do that. I said to her, well, guess what? Meet me. My name is capacity. I created a position for myself, not because I wanted to be employed by the business that she worked in. I wanted them to become a partner in making sure that I elevate and move my business forward. So it is important also to know what it is that you want to do if you are going to go into the space of being an entrepreneur. If you are aspirational about being an entrepreneur, you've got to be shameless about putting your business in front of everything that it is that you are doing. Granted, walk into this business and eventually I get to meet a whole lot of people. And one of the ladies that would have been my line managers, her husband unfortunately passes on. Her husband passes on, and for 3 months, she is very, very busy, trying to sort out her financial affairs, because her husband at some point was the one in charge of their financial affairs. And believe it or not, she came to me the one day and she said to me, you know that they came and switched off my lights. I said, what do you mean? She's like, no, they switched off my lights. I said, okay, well, you need to go to the municipality and find out why your lights have been switched off. She said, okay, no, can you come with me? So we go to the municipality to find out why this poor lady, a widow, why her lights have been switched off. We arrived there and they say to her, okay, it's the account number. Umagayazi account number. In fact, she's asking the account number. They explained to her that you've got to have a municipal account where you're paying your rates and taxes. She did not know that she needed to pay her rates and taxes. Her husband was doing all of this. She said to me, she thought when she pays the bond, it covers all of those things. What this lady had was what we call an ostrich bias. You know, an ostrich with a long neck and the head is at the top, but the neck is so long. So the ostrich bias is when you keep your head down when it comes to financial matters, because you think if you do not know about these things, they don't become your responsibility. When you do not know about what is actually happening in your business, this is why a lot of artists will wake up one day and say, I didn't know I owe tax. Ela, tax. I was But this is what a lot of people do. It is an avoidance mechanism. It's a coping mechanism that people do. And I kid you not, there are many entrepreneurs who do the same thing. There are many people who aspire to be entrepreneurs who are not compliant in their own financial service or financial matters in their individual private lives. So if you are going to be an entrepreneur, if you are going to be an SMME, if you are going to be a small business, going to grow from being a startup business all the way up into becoming a huge business that is in charge of other people's lives, that is in charge of other people's salaries, that is a social responsible citizen of our country, at some point you've got to get in line with your finances. And unfortunately or fortunately, financial emotional intelligence is one of those things that you're going to have to deal with, because that's the thing that creeps up on you. There's another story I want to tell you before I actually get into the top things that you need to do to make sure that once you've got your financial emotional intelligence in check, you've got to then you need a tool shed, a toolbox of these things to make sure that your cash flow is well managed and well taken care of. So you may have read the story in my book. If you've read my book, or you may have heard me speak a little bit about it. It is a story of how I walked into Luminan's shop and my jaw dropped to the ground. So a couple of years ago, my father used to work for the Parliament of South Africa. I don't know for what reason. I don't know what he was doing there, but he worked there. And of course, one of the things that they've got to do is attend ISONA, right? The State of the Nation address. This is where they all lie to each other about what they're going to do. The president lies to them about what he's going to do, whatever. Boo-hoo. So now he says to me, I'm inviting you and your mom this year, but you need to have an outfit. Now, my dad, being my father, sends this invite literally a day or two, I think, before the day I need to fly to Cape Town. So I say to him, well, I need a dress, so send me your money. My dad then decides, okay, no, it's fine. I'll send you 10,000 Rand. Good. For 10,000 Rand, I'm at work. So unfortunately, I cannot go shopping during the day. It's a Friday, I need to fly out the Saturday morning. So what do I do? So now I work, my studio at the time, I was working for How TV. My studios are in, is it Melville Park? No, by the SABC, what's that? Auckland Park. The studios are by Auckland Park. So the only mall that is open at 6 o'clock that is on my way from Auckland Park to where I live is Hyde Park Mall. Man, to be quite honest, if I had emotional intelligence, I should have known at the point that Aguna Roko, a Hyde Park that is less than 5,000. I should have known. I should have just known. But you know, when you're the type of person that really is not too consumeristic about things, you really just don't know about a lot of things. In fact, when I got to Johannesburg back in 2010, I avoided Sandton City like the plague. I was like, I'm not going to Sandton City because that's where you waste your money. Anyway, fast forward, this is me now going to, or rewind rather. This is me walking into Hyde Park, and the first shop I hit is Luminance. Now, if you know the history of Luminance, you know that it obviously is started by a very, very trailblazer. Her name, Kanye Dlomonkize, exceptional woman. So of course, She has exceptional taste. And exceptional taste come at exceptional cost. So here I am walking into Luminance and I spot a dress that I absolutely love. And fine, I had the budget for the dress. My dad had given me a budget for the dress. So I grabbed the dress. The dress is around about 9,000 Rand, I think. Grab the dress, happy with the dress. Walk to the till. As I'm walking to the till, the lady says to me, oh, this dress would look nice with a belt. So I'm like, yo, but I need like a thin belt. Nah, my sister. She's like, yeah, you know, those little thin belts that you can barely see that they're there, but they're there. Nah, that you're right. Pull a belt, literally. I literally just pulled this belt. I didn't check the price of the belt. Pull the belt, go to the teller. We're at the teller. Chip skins the dress. Right. 9,000 Rand. At the time, I'm literally sitting on my phone. And this is me on my phone as she's scanning. She scanned the belt. Guys, that belt could not have been as thin or thicker than this thing. Scans the belt is 3,000 Rand. I almost, like at that point, I'm like, nah, something must be off. 300 maybe. She says, no, the belt is 3,000 Rand. I said, there's no way. There is no way a belt is 3,000 Rand. What is in the belt that makes it 3,000 Rand? But here's the thing. At that moment, I had an opportunity to say to Sisi, it's fine. I don't need the belt. I will make a plan. Instead, my ego kicked in. And I said to her, no, it's fine. Nothing was fine. Nothing was fine. From that day, I knew that there was something wrong with my ego, my emotions, and everything that comes with it. I knew that I deserved wealth. I knew I deserved to be rich. However, my ego was the problem. How many of us as entrepreneurs suffer for so long trying to get just a tender, trying to get just a deal, trying to get a corporate company to see you. And when they see you, the first thing you go and buy is a Range Rover. How many of us? We do it. And that is why I say you can manage the cash flow in your business. You can do all of those things. And the reality is that it doesn't matter who you actually are. If you can keep your financial emotional intelligence in check, then you get the right tools, you've got a winning formula. But you can't have the tools and not the emotional intelligence, because it doesn't matter what Nicolette's going to say to you. It doesn't matter how many of those tools you got in your toolbox. If you can't get this one part of your life correct, you're going to walk into, what are these drinking holes there in the Eastern Cape? You're going to walk into one of those. You're going to walk and bump into Ulunga, Seletaflen, Kunamat Ayafloa, Ufike Utole pressure. You forget that you have a supplier, or you've got a contract which you need to supply the next week. You need to be able to buy material. You need to supply something. You need to do it next week. It cannot be late. But because Ulunga, Pegu Hennessy, VSOP, not the normal one on the table, you've also got to do it. And women will do it to you also. That's what happens. So one thing, before I even get into those things that I want to speak a little bit about, is you've got to make sure, I guess, guys. One thing you've got to make sure of is your financial and emotional intelligence. You've got to get it right. So let's talk a little bit about what is cash flow. Cash flow is making sure that your business stays afloat all the time. It's so funny because yesterday, so I'm gonna show you guys how I run my business. It's the most weirdest thing. I have got the weird, so I've got a lady who does my invoicing, and my invoicing is done on Sage, right? So fine, we do invoicing on Sage, but this girl has what I call, let me tell you, I have a list of all the people that need to pay me every single month. I want to show you guys what it looks like. It's on my phone. It's under my notes. Where is it, man? This is basically how I keep track. It's a list of all the people that owe me money, that need to pay me. Yesterday, I was sitting with the lady who does our finances. I said, ooh, Sibani still owes us money. And there's a due date next to how much, when we need to get paid. Literally every day when I wake up and I get tired, I wake up and I'm like, oh, this person's owed me due 4 November, due 15 November, due 20 November. Okay, we need to chase on this invoice. No, we've got an accounting system, but I need this system because this system makes sure that my business stays afloat. And I don't worry nobody. I don't fight with nobody. I don't ask, when is this invoice getting processed? Because when it is due, it must be processed. And I do it so well because clients will say to me, our payment period is of 60 days. I've got no stress with that. I don't fight clients about payment periods of 60 days. I have no issue with that. You know why? Because I have a cash flow plan. So I know that at least I know how much my business. So here's the first step that you need to know as a person. And this is now from an individual perspective and from a business perspective. You need to know what your operational costs are. When we talk about these things from an individual perspective, we talk about you having a budget. You need to know what your living expenses are, what your contractual debt is, and what you need to be able to get through those 25 days each and every single month. Remember, you're getting paid every single 25 days, essentially, right? You need to know, we don't count that first week after getting paid because you guys, that week doesn't exist. Nobody has that week. Like, it doesn't exist because everybody gets excited about their money, right? So you need to know what gets my business through 25 days. What gets my household, because your household essentially should be run like a business. The finances should be run like a business. So if you're not an entrepreneur yet that needs to manage a business's finances and you're still trying to balance yourself out as being an aspirational entrepreneur, or you are, you're still managing your household will be indicative of how you're going to manage your finances in your business. So you need to make sure that you know exactly how much you need. Once I know how much I need, let's say, for instance, I need 100,000 Rand every single month to be able to run the business operationally from a rent perspective, to a salary perspective, to a payee perspective, and to a supplier management and payment perspective. I need 100,000 Rand, let's say, for instance. I need to make sure that on that timetable, like when you remember when you were in school, you used to have a timetable, science, maths, English, I make sure that every time I get a job, I plonk a supplier, their PO, which is their purchase order, onto my cash flow timetable. And I need to make sure that I am cushioning myself in case I don't get paid. So I need to have at least 2 or 3 suppliers paying in a week to make sure that I am. So when you say to me, we're paying in 60 days, I'm like, it's not a problem. I take 60 days, I plonk you at the right place for 60 days to make sure that the business still flows in terms of having its cash flow. So I don't stress suppliers. I don't mind them saying, we'll pay you after 3 months, after 3 months, because what you're essentially doing for me is making sure that in 3 months, however much you are paying me, I can minus from the 100,000 Rand I need for that specific month. So you need to first and foremost be very clear about what are your needs. A lot of us are trying to manage a cash flow in a business where we don't know what the needs of the business are. In fact, we get shocked. Hey, you must pay printing. And then all of a sudden you don't know what happened. Hey, this month we need to do marketing. Did you plan for marketing? Because now marketing is going to push the budget for the month. All of a sudden now you have cash flow issues because marketing. So it's important to make sure that while you are actually starting off by saying, how do I manage my cash flow? You begin there by saying, let me plonk my cash flow, my invoices, to ensure that I don't have a bumpy road as I am flowing throughout the month. That's your step number 1. It's understanding the importance also of cash flow. COVID really presented us with a great opportunity because what COVID did is it made the richer more rich. And it sounds horrible. That's the reality of life. Because assets were going, do you know Mati is lahlile? Is ways lahlile. Ama assets, they got lahlile during COVID. Because obviously, the appreciation and the value of certain things is going to come down when the demand of those things is no longer existent. So when the demand, for instance, for 2-bedroom apartments is going down, the suppliers of those 2-bedroom apartments need to start negotiating prices, because now I am coming as Nicolette and I'm saying, I have 900,000 Rand. Your 2-bedroom is going at 1.2 million. I don't have 1.2 million. Or you can sit without imali, can sit without a sale, or you can give it to me at 900,000 Rand. So when you do have cash flow, you put yourself in a very advantaged position to be able to exploit opportunities, to be able to take, because let's be fair, at some instance, one thing that's going to happen is that zizolahla the assets, whether it's cattle, whether it's property, whether it's shares. I mean, right now, Bitcoin, it's tumbling. And if you have cash flow, you can take an advantage of it. So cash flow is such an important part of expanding business. Cash flow is an important part of taking an opportunity at something that may be, I mean, let's be fair. I do financial education, our business does financial education, but somehow in the beginning of the year, we went and bought land for farming because there's lafile prices of land. We were like, good shots. The business is going to pivot into a business that becomes our emergency account. And I want you to understand what I've just said. The land, the farming is not our core business. Our core business is doing financial education and creating financial education content. The farm we have bought becomes our emergency fund. So it makes money to save the business, because if I don't save the business, at some point, there's not going to be a business to come back to. So a lot of people think when we talk about emergency fund, it's got to be a fund that exists, that somebody's putting money away. But where is that money going to come from? Because all your operational costs already are allocated. All the money you are making every single month is allocated to a specific thing. But remember what I said, there's a connection that we're talking about here. We're saying make sure that your cash flow is healthy. When your cash flow is healthy, it gives you an opportunity and an advantage for you to be able to take and to explore and exploit opportunities when the assets is lahlile. When those assets is lahlile, the prices are low, the demand is low, but the supply is high. You buy an asset that may not be aligned with your business just so that you can create an additional cash flow that becomes your business emergency fund. It's absolutely important that when you are thinking about your business, you've got to think about your business like a machine that runs, a machine that is well-oiled and it runs like that. Same way when you are in your home and in your household, you've got to think about your household like a well-oiled machine, because what does your household do? If you can manage the cash flow that comes into your household and you can find yourself in situations where you can manage yesterday, Lesetja Kganyago and the boys from the Monetary Policy Committee have told us that we're now in a cycle where the interest rate is going to be hiked. So it's going to keep getting hiked. What does that mean? It means that if you have a market-related loan, for instance, your payments are going up. Your payments are definitely going up. But in your budget, in your spending plan, in your cash flow of your household, did you factor for such a change? The only way you're going to be able to do it is to make sure that you have an overview, a projection. Remember, a projection is simply a calculated guess, right? But you've got to have one that tells you what could potentially happen. And if that thing does not happen, you now have what is called a disposable income that allows you again to take advantage of those opportunities when they do arise. Same way in a business. Same way in a business. You need to create a cash flow plan that allows you that when the business is in crisis, you are able to respond effectively. When the business is not in crisis, but someone else's business is in crisis, you have the opportunity to then go and actually take advantage of that. It's as simple as that. Business is not about us being noble. Business is not us about saying, oh, we must save Joka's general class because, oh, shame. COVID. No, business is about going to Joka and saying, how do I help you? But I must help myself in the same time. So it's important to make sure of that. That's the step number one, is understanding what cash flow actually does for your business. But it's important also to understand, and as I said, that when you walk into your tool shed, you've got to pick the right tools to ensure that this cash flow that you now understand we've got to have is maintained and it is well taken care of. So, ladies who are here on the session today, let's talk a little bit about, for instance, you walk in, they say to you, siyasanga, invite for a date. Siyasanga invites you for a date and you know about where he's taking you. So you decide, but I need to look my best. You are not walking into your makeup kit blindly and just simply taking out brushes and just putting makeup on. No, you've got your makeup carefully planned because you know what a good looking face may potentially gain you, right? You know why looking good for that specific date, why it's important. You know that it may secure the next date because every date is an audition for the next date, Kaloku, we know this. So it's important that when you go into your makeup box, you pull the right brush, Kaloku, eyebrows, blush, foundation brush. No, you've got to have it on point. Same thing that when you are planning for your finances, when you're planning for your cash flow, when you walk into the tool shed, you've got to pick the right tools. You don't just go in and then pick a tool and hope that this one tool is going to start by helping me with my cash flow. So let's start with step number one. You've got to make sure that you are monitoring your cash flow regularly. What did I say? Create yourself a timetable that helps you in monitoring your cash flow. If you monitor your cash flow, you are quick to know the month where you are going to have a crisis. I am always surprised when I have employers saying to me, we can't pay salaries. Excuse me, you can't pay what? How did you not know this 2 months ago? If work was not coming, work has not been coming, how did you not know you can't pay salaries? And I need to understand this. So it's important to make sure that you know and you check your cash flow as regularly as possible. Use accounting systems, use the Sages of this world, use the QuickBooks of this world, use Nicolette's iPhone note. This allows you, draw yourself a timetable. You see, I get defeated by technology a lot, so it can be there in my office and all those who know how to use it can use it. Me, on the other hand, I'm not going to get myself really complicated in the technology. No. I'm going to use what works. What works for me is I have a list every morning before I wake up. The first thing I check is list. I go through my list and I say, okay, this month. Use what works for you. But what you do need to do is to check your cash flow every single month. You can't get, for instance, I sell books. One of the things that I sell is books. So I have the bookshops ordering books for me. I have Take-A-Lot ordering books for me. I can't get, guys, come on. This thing actually stresses me out when people say, oh, I can't do this. I know when I see on my Take-A-Lot, on my supplier or seller platform, and I can see I know I need to supplement Take-A-Lot. If I go to my storage and there are not enough books, I should have foreseen this type of issue even before it actually arrived. Then I go to my bank account and I'm like, ooh, we're not going to have enough money to be able to buy books. Okay, what do? You make a plan. Crisis comes, crisis management. But if I can see, if I'm planning, I go to Take-A-Lot. I look at how many books are left. I look at the rate or the frequency at which books are being bought. If I'm getting people buying, for instance, 10 books in a day, and I only have 100 books, I literally have 10 days left. So in 10 days, I need to go to my storage and check, do I have enough books to be able to supplement Take-A-Lot? No, I don't have enough books, which means I need to order books. Go back to my bank account. Do I have enough money to pay for an order for books? Yes, I do. Or actually, no. Okay, sharp. Go back to the cash flow and say, it's a blunder. Because I should have had a payment that comes through just before that 10 days elapses so that I can buy books, order books, let them get delivered, and I can supplement Take-A-Lot before I get to a point where I do not have books that people can actually order. Because there's nothing worse than having a client, a customer sitting on Take-A-Lot and the book is not available. It makes no sense. So you've got to monitor your cash flow very regularly. The second thing you've got to do is cut your costs. Cut costs. The only way you're going to cut costs is if you know what's happening in your finances. You can't cut costs if you don't know what's happening in your finances. You know, first, if you have an iPhone, I want you to log into your phone and go to settings. On settings, there's a thing there at the top that says your name. It will say iPhone. You press on that. There's then a thing at the bottom that says subscriptions. You press on subscriptions. And you will be surprised how many subscriptions you have that are annually, monthly, whatever debiting your bank account that you can get rid of. When we talk about cutting costs, cut the costs that are not necessarily assisting with the cash flow of the business. Now, there's a gentleman by the name of Garrett Gunderson. Garrett Gunderson speaks about creating your own banking system in your life. And one of the things he speaks about is a cash flow index. All right, so let's talk a little bit about those subscriptions. If you have an iPhone, you go into settings. After settings, at the top is where your name is, or your iCloud name, or your iPhone name, whatever you press on it. Under that, you will see, it will say name, phone numbers, email, password and security, payment and shipping. And then it will say, and payment and shipping is exactly where you're getting debited for all of these subscriptions that come right under that. There's a thing called subscriptions. You press on it, and all of a sudden, you find out how many people are debiting your account. Sometimes you actually even miss it, because that email to debit your account comes sneaky, just goes, account debited. So it's important to make sure that you do that to check. Cutting your costs is also very important. Cut the costs that are not going to be helping you with the cash flow. As I was saying, Garrett Gunderson speaks about a thing called cash flow index. Your cash flow index is simply a mathematical equation that you can do, or a mathematical formula that you can do to check any of your loans, which are actually taking a big chunk of your cash flow. So you take the amount in total that you owe, and you divide it by the amount you pay monthly. You are going to get a score. Anything below 100 is inefficient. Anything above 100 is great. If it is below 100, it is inefficient. That loan needs to go. You got to pay off that loan as quickly as possible, because that cost of the loan is too expensive for the cash flow of the business. The day you find yourself in trouble, it's because that specific loan, that specific debt is taking a huge chunk of your money. You can do it also without actually looking at just your debt. Even things that you need to pay for. For instance, I take the book and I'm like, how much does it cost for me to print the book? I divide it by the cost of the book. And whatever the cash flow index is there, if it's too low, it means that the book is actually not making me any money. The book is taking a big chunk of my cash flow, and the return thereof is not worth it. So it's important for you to figure out these types of things so that you can cut the right expenses and costs out of your business. The next tool that you need to find is what we call income generating assets. Your business needs to have income generating assets that are separate from the business. It is also what we call investments. When you are investing in specific areas, like for us, we've invested in a farm. We've also invested in property. When we take those things, the property we've invested on, we're getting rental property. So there's a stream of income. Your business, just like you, needs to have additional income streams. Every business needs to have additional income streams. It cannot only be the core of the business, because what happens when a crisis hits and you are shut down? Then the business can't make money anymore. But if the business has a property, somebody still needs to live there. So rental property is still coming in. So it's important. All right, so that cash flow formula, it's your cash flow index formula. And basically, it is the total. I'm going to use the debt because it's easier to use the debt. You can also use this for your own finances as an individual. If you owe, for instance, you owe a loan, a home loan of 800,000, and your monthly installment, I'm going to type it out, monthly installment is let's make your monthly installment 10,500, right? You've got to take 800,000. Let's do the mathematics together. Okay, so we do the mathematics. 800,000 divide by the 10,500 you pay monthly, you're going to get a cash flow index of 76. It's not great. It's not below 50, but it's below 100. Not great. You need the cash flow index to be above 100 for it to be something that is worth you keeping in your life, because that's a debt you can service over time and it's not chowing ultimately into your cash flow. So you got to get all of these things above 100 for them to be what we call efficient loans. So very, very important. Right. Yes, very true, Nande. It is because they've got high interest rates. So the higher the interest rates, the more money. Remember, banks are not stupid. Banks see us as investments. So whatever loan they're giving you, they are going to increase their return on investment, which is the interest rate that they actually charge you. And when that interest rate goes up, it means your monthly installment also goes up. When your monthly installment goes, that's why, I'll come back to this one. When your monthly installment goes up, a big chunk of money needs to be now put or minus from your budget to be able to service that monthly installment. And all of a sudden, your cash flow is in tatters because now payment. If the monthly installment is half of that payment, to be quite honest, half of your money is already gone. Scary, right? The next one I want to talk about is cashing in on your assets, cashing in on income generating assets. It's a very important thing because businesses need to have additional income streams. Simple. Your business, just like you, needs to have additional income streams. You cannot depend on one income stream because when that income stream gets shut down, what happens? Then people think, no, we must buy big things. No, you don't need to buy big things. I want to give you guys practical examples. We're living in a space where everybody wants to be digital, everyone wants to do a YouTube channel, everybody wants to do all of these things. If your business has a little bit of money, buy yourself a camera. Rent the camera out to creators who need to use a camera to create their content. You rent it out. Okay, sharp, you can't find creators. Go to the local tourist destination. You hire a cameraman who knows how to take good pictures. And you say to the guys there, when you guys are renting out these rooms or people are booking these rooms, please include an option for a cameraman who's going to follow them around for Instagrammable pictures. People love pictures at holiday destinations. But it's so sad because let's say it's a couple, it's me and my man, and we're at a holiday destination and we're trying to take, and let's say we're doing like a little picnic. But now we need someone to take a picture, but now we can't because it's just the two of us. So the pictures, I mean, unless you are dating someone you should not be dating, who does not want to be in pictures with you, then it's okay. Then you can take pictures by yourself. But if we want to create memories and both of us want to be in the picture, we need a camera person. And if there's no camera person, picture does not get captured. But if you go to your local destination and say, guys, I want to offer remember, the additional income stream for your business does not need to be the main source of income. It just needs to be an additional income stream. Right. Also, while you are cashing in on assets, go to your business today, look around at the assets that you currently have that have become obsolete. Most of us are carrying old printers. Most of us are carrying furniture we no longer use. Even in your house, there are things in your house that you look at them and you're like, what was going on there? I have this mop. It's still in a box. It's never been opened. Because to be quite honest, my helper was like, I'm not going to use this mop because it's a fancy mop. I don't know how to use it. Now we're not using it. There's a dishwasher that came with the house when I bought the house. Nobody uses that dishwasher. It's obsolete in my house. It's an asset I'm carrying that I don't need to be carrying. I can sell it for an income. The business needs a cash flow. Let me increase my cash flow by making sure that I'm getting rid of all the obsolete assets. The assets you need to keep in your business, income generating assets. If you have not used something in the last 6 months, get rid of it. Go to Tell Joy, go to Cash Crusaders, sell it. IOL, sell it. Is it IOL? IOLX, I think. Sell it, bid or buy, Gumtree, it's not working, Chan. OLX, yes. OLX, guys. Sell it. The fourth thing that you need to do is to get a credit line. I know this, people are like, ooh, what do you mean? Guys, there's a huge difference between credit and debt. Credit is simply a facility that allows you to be able to tap into financial reserves when you need the financial reserves. Yes, they come at a cost. Everything in life comes at a cost. Debt is a liability. It is when you have now used the credit line and you have a liability to pay back. but you need a credit line. Every business needs a credit line because you actually, if you don't have a good cash flow, even if you've done all of the things that you need to do to make sure your cash flow is taken care of, when that business opportunity comes and it's huge, and now you're missing out on opportunities that you could be taking advantage of if you had a credit line. A credit line needs discipline. But before you can even have discipline for a credit line, you need to actually qualify for a credit line. So this is another thing that people don't seem to understand, that a business has its own credit history. A business has its own credit risk. A business has its own credit status. So you've got to take care of the credit score of the business. The business needs to have some level of affordability. So the business needs to be making money. Same thing in your life. You need to have an income. You need to have a credit score, a good one at that, to be able to get a good credit line. In actual fact, a good business credit line is good insurance against any types of cash flow problems. Gotta have one. Don't have a choice. The next thing you gotta do is, so when new businesses try to get in a credit line, they are always told you are high risk because you don't have any credit. Can you unpack that more, please? The business then needs to take, right, great stuff. This is a good one. If your business makes money, the banks will line up to give you a credit card. The credit card is where your first stop is when you're trying to build a good credit risk, credit history. Even in your personal life, if you're trying to build a good credit history, get a credit card. I'm not talking about somebody that does not have affordability. I'm talking about a business that has some level of affordability. I'm talking about a business that has a track record of money coming into the bank account. I'm talking about a business that has a track record of having a tax return because you've got an IT-12. You have to have these things, IT-34, sorry. You have to have these things for you to even be considered for any type of credit line. It is important to start at the credit card because remember, a credit card, unlike other credit, does not necessarily need to be used for it to be on your profile. A credit card is a credit facility. It is not debt yet, up until you use it. So what do we do, for instance, to build a credit history for our business? We get a credit card for the business. When we get the credit card, we use the account as our transacting account. So we take our own money and we pump it into the credit card. Now, instead of using the credit facility, we're using our debit money. So we're being debited our own money that we have put onto the credit card. Now, when they check your credit history, they're not checking a debt score, they are checking a credit score. A credit score, therefore, is made up of your credit facilities and how you use those credit facilities. So when they check it, they see, if financial fitness bunnies in a credit, they don't care how you're using that credit until you actually use it. They're not going to check the rate of your use. Of course, remember, credit utilization does count towards your credit score. So when you are not even using that credit, you just seem like, oh, you are so disciplined. A credit card, in a credit facility, and this. So it's important to make sure that you're doing that. So I write for a blog called IOL. We're supposed to be charging them every single month, every time I write a blog. We have not done that. So yesterday, as I said, I was having a conversation with a girl who does invoicing. I said, yay! I need to see the invoices for IOL because I've not seen them. You know what the problem is? She's making me lose money. She's not staying on top of my invoicing. That's not great for cash flow planning. So number 5, stay on top of your invoicing. It's important. Got to know what exactly it is that you are doing, and you know when you are doing it, and you know when to. Guys, when money comes into my bank account, I'm not shocked. I don't wake up and say, yo, what deposit? I'm expecting it. The net due date. My invoices have a due date. I expect. In fact, it's when money doesn't come in that I'm like, red flag, red flag, red flag, red flags. And you got to stay on top of your finances. It is going to assist you. So even if you cannot do it yourself, the license for Sage accounting, I think is 3,000 or something like that. You guys can club up for it with a couple of friends. You can all get different login details. So it doesn't have to be one business. It can be more than one business using the same license. Okay? You can use it. It's not, you don't have to use the same license. I mean, different license. You can use the same license and load different businesses. There are many other free softwares or programs that may be elementary and you may need something a little bit deeper, but you can write even these types of programs. Let's programs or these things. Can do it. Speak to Lonwabo. 4 or 5 of you go to Lonwabo and say, my G, write us a program. He writes it once. That's the beauty also about IP. So you write this thing once. When a restaurant comes and says we need it, you just do what is called 80% automation and 20% tailoring. So he only tailors 20% of the thing. It already exists. He already has it. So I write them, but not for free. Of course, he writes them. He's already written it. He just tailors the 20% for the type of business that you've got, but you've got to pay him because that is IP. But if 4 or 5 of you guys come together, 4 or 5 of you come together and say, Lonwabo, we need to make sure that you write us some Excel formulas and spreadsheet that makes sure that it tells us when an invoice needs to go out, the invoice needs to have been paid. To staying on top of your invoicing. It's so important to stay on top of your invoicing so you don't forget. It is because that will also assist you in knowing whether or not you're going to have enough money for as a salary. Debit orders cannot be bouncing, guys. Debit orders should not be bouncing. The 6th thing is stop being afraid of money. Stop being afraid of asking for what you need. My lady who does invoicing the other day, so we applied for VAT, whatever story, and eventually we got a VAT certificate. Okay, sharp. She says to me, what are we going to do about all of those people that we've already kind of told them how much they need to pay us, but we didn't factor in VAT? I said, you factor in the VAT and you send them the VAT certificate. It is not our problem. We're now a VAT registered vendor, therefore VAT must be paid. It's not money that's coming into our bank accounts. It is money that needs to be paid to SARS either way. Don't be afraid of money. Don't be afraid to have open conversations about money. If you need to get a deposit for a certain job, you ask for a deposit for that job because that's the way you're going to do it. Don't be afraid that that person is not going to become a repeat customer or a repeat client. They were never going to be a repeat client if they're going to stress about you asking for a deposit. What the hell? I don't need a deposit. My cash flow needs a deposit. It's not about Nicolette. It's not about people who are going to walk around and say things like, do you guys know you can't work with Nicolette, you can't work with financial partners because they're always so desperate for a deposit. No. It is my terms and conditions of working with my business. Pay up a deposit. And you pay the deposit before I get up and do any work. These are policies that you don't have to have in your business, but they are great. Good relationship building. Deposit says to the client, I am keen, I am willing to do the job. It also says from the client's side, we are happy to be working with you. We're excited to be happy to be working with you, and we look forward to the work you're going to deliver. It's as easy as that. It's good for long-term contracts. It's good for huge contracts. It's good for huge clients. And huge is relative to your business. Nobody's going to say, but this is a small contract. Even if they say the invoice is 5,000. And then someone, but this is a small contract. You guys want to tell me that your business doesn't have 5,000? No, we have 5,000. Sally, Mary Ann, Zandile. We have 5,000. But we don't want to disturb our cash flow by having to take that 5,000 and go pay for your job, because then tomorrow when we want to get paid, they're going to tell us to wait for the end of the month. And now cash flow is gone out to the dogs. So no, we have it. This is not about you. Don't worry about our business's finances. Wena patala deposit. Because remember, the size of a contract is relative. It's got nothing to do with the next person. It's got everything to do with your business. So you need to make sure that if you want to not disturb your cash flow, these are the types of policies that you've got to implement, and you've got to be upfront about them. The other thing is that we want to shock clients. We don't discuss the fact that we are going to require deposits. Then we require deposits and then everybody gets shocked. So it's important to make sure that if you are going to require a deposit, the client must know from upfront. Things like that. Now we know we have to tell the client upfront that there is a VAT that is going to be charged to the payment because we are a VAT registered vendor. So these things are very important. We've got to factor them in. The next one that I want to deal with is to make sure that you build a good relationship with your suppliers, your own suppliers. There will be times when I say a good relationship, I talk about honesty also. We're not honest people. We're not honest people. We don't like honesty. We're afraid that honesty puts us in a weak position. Honesty does not put you in a weak position. In fact, honesty makes you a fantastic entrepreneur. Because an honest entrepreneur is not shamed by honesty. An honest entrepreneur is an entrepreneur that manages expectations. One of the biggest jobs you will ever have as an entrepreneur is to manage expectations of your clients and of your suppliers. So when you need something from somebody else, they need to know, what are your payment terms? What are your terms and conditions? When will you pay me? If you can see on your cash flow that you cannot pay me, are you communicating with me? Are you letting me know in time so that I don't, as a vendor to you, compromise my own cash flow? Because my cash flow is dependent on you paying me, and my cash flow is also going to impact someone else. The thing about entrepreneurship is that it's a vicious circle that we're all happening to be in, and where if it goes wrong on one person's place and they can't fix it, often it trickles down to everybody else. So it's important to make sure that you are honest and have a good relationship. You've got a good relationship with the people that you are going to be working with. This is going to assist you in managing your cash flow. This is going to assist you in managing relationships. And to be fair, on the day when you don't have the money, if I don't have the money, for instance, if I have a client that says, I need to deliver a Black Friday message, and I don't have the capacity to do it, but I don't have the money to pay upfront, I should be able to say to Itumeleng, can you step in for me and create content for Black Friday? And because I've got a good relationship with Itumeleng, that should happen. It should not be something that she thinks twice about. It should be something that, based on the relationship that we have, even if it's not friendly, but because she trusts me as a business, she will be able to step up and do it. I may not need to know who the CEO of Black Hat Group is. I don't need to have a personal relationship with him or her. But when we start talking business, Black Hat can have a great relationship with Financial Fitness Buddies, simply because when we do work together, we keep each other honest. And that is important. This is how you put together. Of course, there's many other tools that should be in your toolbox in terms of managing your cash flow. But I'm going to end it here today so that I can give you guys an opportunity to ask me any questions. I don't know how we're going to do the question. Is Zandile going to step in and assist in? Oh, hi, yes. But thank you very much for indulging me in having that conversation with you. I'm hoping that your finances are going to be better off from here. I'll hand it over back to Zandile for any questions if there are. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nicolette. Oh my goodness. I enjoyed each and every aspect that you have touched on to today. Even your storytelling. I was just out here like having a blast of a laugh. So I know that Luphumlo also is going to chip in a bit, but if anyone has any questions for Nicolette, you can just unmute yourself. But I think first you need to indicate, maybe you can have like two people, maybe they can interact with Nicolette just a bit. And then if anyone right now, just like any indication, and then we can give it to Luphumlo.
I just want to say something also quickly. Guys, as entrepreneurs, one thing we need to do is to be able to build a community of network. At the end of the day, your network is going to be your net worth. Yeah. When we speak about the bottom line, we speak about being able to have access to people that if you say, please, I need you to jump in on this, somebody is able to jump in. For instance, I mean, I at the top of my mind can give you 5 different entrepreneur names of people that I know for a fact that can jump in when I need them to jump in on specific things, whether it is from a come and speak with me at an event, come and help me with this, help me with that. What I've just seen happen in the chat box shows that we are not doing enough to be able to give people information in terms of what do we do in our spaces as entrepreneurs. So in the chat box, guys, share what you do, share what type of services you can offer. If you are looking for trading or bartering types of services, for instance, I am sick. I'm going to be very honest with you guys, because I just found out this and it really makes me sick. Like, let me tell you something that I do not like, or I'm not good at. I'm not good at human capital development in my office, because to be quite honest, employees really suck. And I'm just being very honest, because this is it's a safe space for me. Employees suck because employees really just take a lot of money out of your business, and it is horrible. Okay, it's horrible because there are days when you look at them and you're like, so I feel like, to be quite honest, right? So, for instance, we've now kind of formalized, because we had to get VAT and all of those sorts of stupid things, so SARS, and then I had to get them UIF, I had to pay payee and all sorts of stuff. And mind you, I need to load their salaries into some system so I can see the total amount of salaries I'm loading. That already on its own makes me very angry as a person. And then I have to pay the tax company that is doing all of this. And then they send me an alert to pay SARS for repayee, and then UIF. Let me tell you, I'm sick. The other day, I said to a lady that I know very well, she does HR and human capital, because I'm not great at it. So I said to her, please, can you quote me to have like a meeting where you speak to my employees and ask them, what are they hoping to achieve in this business? I don't have time for those meetings, okay? I'm here to make money. I don't have time for those things. So I said to her, please quote. Guys, she quoted me 45,000 rands. I was like, my sister, please, man. Please, man. I'm stressing about these employees and paying them. You want to quote me 45,000? So I said, you know what? There's so many things that I can do. So we agreed. She works for a company. I said, I'm going to come and do 4 sessions of financial wellness. You're going to look good to your CEOs because you brought financial wellness to the business. I'm going to do 4 sessions and you're going to do this thing with my employees for free, because what the hell? But if you don't communicate those things, people don't know what your business does. If Lonaba had not said, guys, I can build these systems, we would have all not known what he does. So you would have been sitting here not knowing how to invoice because you don't know a person like Lonaba. So let's communicate, let's build network. If you are going to, guys, and also remember that, and this is what we do as South Africans, right? We have got this idea of people are only important when I need them immediately. No. There are many people. For instance, I started writing Coco the Money Bunny, which is my kiddies book. If you don't know, I wrote a kiddies book. Let me show you, because you know what, whatever. I'm going to show you. So I wrote the kiddies book. But this book, I actually wrote the contents of this book 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, I had already started putting together. I didn't need an illustrator then. I needed an illustrator at the beginning of this year, but I already knew where I was going and who I was going to go to, because you meet people. Yes, I don't need them immediately, but I'm going to need them at some point. So you keep them at the back of your mind. You keep them somewhere. You've got to think about it that way. You've got to have projections. People say there's 2 ways in which people think about things. I'm not a goal setting person. I'm not a medium, long-term, short-term, medium-term person. I don't do well in goal setting like that. I do what is called a runway. So for me, it's make lots of money, create a runway so that your project can take off. So by the time you see my project taking off, it is because I have been creating money. Because let's be fair, if you know how an airplane works, an airplane doesn't just go from flat and jumps up. It needs momentum to build, and it goes up. And that's how I do my things in my business. So I build, but as I'm building, it's not just the money that you need for the runway. It is the contact. It is, by the time I launch this, how am I going to get into the bookshops? How am I getting it on Takealot? Who's going to do my designing? Who's going to do all of these things? So as I'm building and I'm building my runway, inclusive and most important to that runway is my network. Because the moment the book got released, the first thing that I did was I called all my rich friends, all my CEOs. I said, right, I need you guys to buy the book so we can donate to schools. So it's important to make sure that you are building a solid network. And again, I mean, there's so many people in here. There's only so many people that have shared what it is that they do in the chat box. Share what you do. You never know who is looking for you. Share what you do. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Nicolette, like now that I'm, reading the comments, some of the people are, not in business yet, but, they would love to be in business, but then just navigating that, the grounds to getting into that point of in having this, trying to catch in and go in for making money, and at the same time, earning something up for themselves. So, this is also a platform for that, and also engaging in and more conversations about, building for yourself as well. So I'm going to give over to Luphumlo. Please, everyone, if you can just check the chat box, maybe we can, interact with each other, take contact details, so that if there's anything that you might need, and that you not now, but you're still in your runway, and that you're going to be in the future need certain services, and then you can always chip in and have a call. I know that there's a couple of people that have already reached out to me as well, which thank you very much for that. I will definitely get back to you as soon as possible. So Luphumlo, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nicolette. I think that was great, and that was wonderful. That was out of this world. And I know that it's 12 o'clock and you have to rush. But maybe just two questions. I'm also part of another WhatsApp group of entrepreneurs all over the Eastern Cape who are under 35, and there's so many comments that are coming in from people on that group as well. And I just want to look at two that have come in and maybe just give you an opportunity to speak to that, so that nothing that you are saying is misrepresented. So one of the questions is about the comment that you made about buying land and buying the farm. And I think the question is around how is that, let me just read it word for word. Buying a farm as an emergency fund, how does that make any sense at all? Maybe if you could just clarify that point. And then the other question was about building credit and having credit cards and all of that. There seems to be so many different views from so many different people. Maybe speak to that a bit, and then yeah, and maybe friends, because of time and because we must respect Nicolette's time, we won't actually look at all of the other questions and comments that are coming in there. Some other questions from Facebook as well, but maybe let's just take those two for now, and then we will call it a day. Thank you, Nicolette.
So I think I'll deal with the question first about credit cards. South Africa has been done a very big disservice, and the disservice is that we don't have enough credit education. First and foremost, it is important to understand what credit is. Credit is, in fact, and I always say this to people, if you look at your statements, whether it's your home loan statement, whether it's your bank statement, whatever it is, when you look at money coming in, it is put under credit. In fact, credit is actually a good thing. But because we have vilified credit, because we use it synonymously with the word debt, that's when it goes all awry and wrong. Credit is simply a facility. It is a facility that says when you need money, when you need access to money, there is money that is already available to you due to the fact that assessments have been done on your name or on your profile to determine whether or not you are a risk. What are those two assessments that get done. One, it is your affordability. So based on the credit provider, an affordability test has already been done. And remember, credit providers have to be in compliant with the National Credit Act. So a credit provider does not have the right to give you credit if it's going to leave you worse off, because ultimately that would be reckless lending. So if a credit assessment has already been done on you, it means that from an affordability perspective, yes, things can change, but from an affordability perspective, what you have presented as your affordability has already been tested based on what the National Credit Act is required. The second thing that needs to be tested is whether or not you have a history of being able to honor your credit agreements. Those credit agreements, for you to be able to honor them, it is when they become what is called a liability. And that is when we speak about what debt actually is. Debt is when you have taken the credit facility, you have used the credit facility, and now you have a responsibility to pay back the credit provider. So it is important to have a line of credit, because a line of credit simply says on the day you need to have access to a certain amount of money, there is a line that is available to you. Yes, it is not free, and nobody says it's free. That is why we talk about a lot of wealthy people being able to leverage debt to be able to buy assets that are going to give them some sort of income. And I'm going to use the home loan because nobody ever talks about the home loan, but the home loan ultimately is a credit facility that a lot of us, one, go and apply for, use to buy a house, and then have a liability to pay. House is an asset. Depending on how you use it, it can be a great asset, it can be an investment asset, or it can be a lifestyle asset. That is exactly very similar to what you are doing when you're getting a credit line. You are getting a credit card as a credit line, similarly to how you would apply for a home loan. The difference is that with a credit card, you need a little bit more discipline because there is no prescribed asset that the credit provider says you need to buy. But if you are a sane human and you are getting a credit card for a business, ultimately it becomes a business credit card, which means that there is actually an asset that you have attached to this credit line, and it is your business. So it means that whatever it is that you're going to be using, that amount of money on the credit card, it is ultimately to change the bottom line of your business. Hence why I say it's important that when you are going to be taking up the credit card, it becomes one of your last resorts in terms of usage. But when we're using it to build a credit profile, you can use a credit profile using a credit card that you are not even using, because remember, on a credit card, you are given what is called a limit. What we then do, for instance, is we've got a credit line, it's a credit card, it is available for us to use. We then take our own money, we pump onto the credit card, and we use that credit card. So the credit card is in use. However, we're not using the credit. At the end of the day, on your profile, there is a credit line that is existing. So you've got to then also, again, it's guys, when it comes to finance, it comes to financial management, there's never going to be anything that is blanket. So you've got to decide also for your business what works. If you know you are in the type of business that is not going to be able to handle a credit line, then you stay away from the credit line. Then you need to find other ways in which you are going to create financial reserves for your company, so that one, if you're doing it for cash flow purposes, it assists you with cash flow and you've got those financial reserves, i.e. having an emergency fund for your business, having those assets that you can dispose of. All of those things are going to be important, because if you're going to have a cash flow interruption, because ultimately, even with personal lives, and I will say this with individual lives, a lot of us go into financial distress when there is an economic interruption into our finances. The moment there is an interruption, for instance, you get retrenched, all of a sudden, that regular income that used to come in is now interrupted. And all of a sudden, you're finding yourself in a situation where you are left wanting. And that's how you end up using credit facilities that you should not be using. Secondly, it could be a salary cut. So there are many different types of financial interruptions from an individual perspective and from a business perspective. So it is about making sure that the reserves that you are keeping, whether it is a credit line, whether it's emergency funds, you know how to be able to use them and still be able to supplement them when you are not using them. Why is a farm for me as an emergency fund for the business? First and foremost, it is important to understand that my business cannot have one way of deriving income. And the reason why we learned this, so 2020, we planned to open the Financial Fitness Bunnies gym. We pumped money into set up of this gym. 2020 March, we were completed, beginning of March, launching 1st of April. Cyril Ramaphosa closed the country down on the 22nd or 21st of March, which means that all our ideas of having a financial gym where we're going to have classes, where we're going to train people, had to halt. The business's way of making money came to a standstill. The business had to quickly find a way to pivot to be able to make money. That was the first time that I thought about the business and said, why is it that in my personal capacity, it's important for me to invest? However, in the business perspective, nobody ever speaks about business investment options. What is the business actually investing into? There's three ways in which you can look at it. Your business can invest and reinvest back into the business based on the core business that you do, based on your services. So for instance, you run a shoe brand, you need to invest in fleet because you want to take over or take back your distribution lines. You invest in a manufacturing company because again, you want to take back the manufacturing part of the process. That's reinvesting back into the business. You could reinvest back into personnel. You could upskill your personnel, right? The second way, you can invest basically into core assets. So you're investing into a farm, you're investing into real estate property. These are investments that are going to give you a cash flow. Yes, there's no guarantee that a farm is going to do absolutely amazing from the get-go. I don't have that guarantee. But remember, the money we're pushing into the farm, the money we push into the farm, we took a chance because it was an opportunity that was presented to us because farmland at that point is lahlile. So we say the money we're going to derive from that farm and whatever we're using that, the money we're going to make and any profits that are going to come from the farm are going straight into an emergency account. It's not money that goes into the operations of the business. We don't need the farm. If we don't have the farm and if the farm does not produce, we don't actually need the farm. So we've taken an amount from the business. We've channeled it into a different, pivoted, altogether non-related investment opportunity that has nothing to do with what we do as a core business. And to be quite honest, without it, we are still going to be operational. We're still going to be okay. So all of the profits and money and cash flow that comes from that specific venture goes into our emergency fund because the day we find ourselves wanting, we should be able to tap into something. Last but not least, the other type of investment you go into is, of course, your paper assets. You're either getting retirement annuities for your staff. You're getting group life policies for your staff. You're getting equity structures for your staff. So there's various ways in which your business, it's important. And I think this is the one area of financial management that most businesses lack. It is reinvesting your profits of a business into not only just the business, but into something else that can sustainably carry the business when things are bad. So for us, yes, we've bought an investment asset. The land is an investment asset for us. The money we're going to derive from that asset is going to go into an emergency fund to save the business when nobody else can save it. So that's ultimately how it makes sense for us.
100%. Thank you so much, Nicolette. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in for today. Unfortunately, because of time, we'll have to call it a day and we'll have to end there for our day one. Tomorrow, same time, 10 until 12, we'll be having Ayabong Akawe, who will be speaking about the economy at your doorstep or on your doorstep. So that will also be very, very interesting. And hopefully, Nicolette, next year, we'll have you in person in East London. Would love to host you in East London. So our team will maybe chat to your side and we'll see if we can make that happen. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for the content that you're putting out on YouTube. Thank you for the books that you've written, Makwande, and we pray and wish you all the best in life. Thank you for tuning in, colleagues, and apologies for all of those questions that we are not able to take.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I think, guys, we can be great. I think more than anything, guys, we have the opportunity. It's ample. It's there. It's not easy. I think the problem is that a lot of us make things look and sound easy. It's not easy, but it's possible. The fact that there are people that have done it, but it is possible. I promise you, some people are really just purely doing it from putting in the right types of principles and making sure that they are taking care of their businesses.
100%. Thank you.